Hey, welcome to Outsmart Your Guitar. Glad you could join us. Today is the beginning of a short series that I'm going to have on practical music theory. What I mean is, this is music theory you can actually use. And it's just going to be a series of 3 videos, maybe 4 videos initially anyway, to help you learn to understand what you're doing and how to do it a little bit better, and to make the learning of songs by other people easier and the jotting down of ideas easier and quicker and more accurate to what you're really trying to do. And I'll explain all of this as we go. So let's just get to it, and be sure to like and subscribe to Outsmart Your Guitar along the way. So when you want to play a piece of music, you have 2 options. You get the written music, or you get the record and listen to it. Now, the written music these days has notation on top and tablature down below, right? So you look at the notation above, well, I don't know how to read music. Yeah, okay. But you got the tablature. That's showing you which strings and which fret on the strings the notes are played. But there's no context because you don't understand how to read the music. So you have to go to the record. Well, now, if you learn the note value, the time value of the notes, you don't need to go to the record because you know how to count the notes now. Even though it's all written out in normal notation, the value of the note is clearly displayed once you understand what it is, so you don't need to read the notation pitch. You just read the notation's note time value in association with the tabbed note or notes that are being played at any given moment. This allows you to work on the song without having to run to the record. Now, the other advantage of learning the value, the time value of notes, is that if you're listening to a record and you want to learn the rhythm part, well, if you understand note values and you understand how to jot them down, then you can quickly get an idea of what the rhythm is and scribble it out on a piece of paper so that you can then look at it without listening to the record and practice the rhythm and make sure you've got it right. If it's not right, you go back and listen and find out where you need to correct, make the little correction, and it's written down. And then later when you come back to it, you've got it written out, you know how it's supposed to sound. It takes you a couple of seconds to get back in the groove of it, and you're good to go. This is what we're going to talk about and show you today. All right, so let's go. The first thing we want to do is establish an understanding of the notes that you're going to encounter most often in music, particularly tablature, for example, right? So, what is displayed on screen right now is a whole note. It is a round circle. And you can see below, it has 1, 2, 3, 4. This whole note is 4 beats long. All right? In the right side, you see a black rectangle hanging from a staff line. That is a whole rest. And a whole rest is 4 beats long. Now, a rest, in case you don't know, means silence, no sound. And it lasts 1, 2, 3, 4 beats in length. That's its time value. All right? Here is a half note. A half note is a circle with a vertical line. That vertical line is called a stem. and its value is 2 beats. So you see the first half note, 1, 2. Now you see another half note, 4, 3, and 4, creating 4 beats in the measure with 2 half notes. So yes, the half note is half the value of a whole note. So it takes 2 half notes to equal 1 whole note. In the right side, you see a half note, 1 and 2, and then you see a little black rectangle sitting on a staff line, and that's worth 2 beats because that's a half rest, so 3, 4. Between the half note and the half rest, you see there are 4 beats. 1, 2 of sound, 3, 4 of silence. Here you see the quarter note. The quarter note is a black dot with a stem, a vertical stem. The quarter note's value is 1 beat. So here you see 4 quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, the quarter note is equal to half the value of the half note. So it takes 2 quarter notes to equal a half note, or 2 beats. On the right, you see a single quarter note followed by a symbol that looks something like a bird flying. That symbol is a quarter rest. It too is equal to 1 beat. That, as you can see, is followed by the half rest, which is equal to 2 beats. So the 1 quarter note followed by the quarter rest and the half rest equals 4 beats for that measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. What you see now is eighth notes. Let's start on the right side so that it's more clearly understood. In that measure, you see a single eighth note, a black dot with a vertical line, the stem, and attached to that stem is what's called a flag or a tail. That signifies a single eighth note. An eighth note is equal to half the value of a quarter note, so it takes 2 eighth notes to equal a quarter note. Next to that eighth note, you see a little thing that looks sort of like a fish hook. That is an eighth note rest, or an eighth rest. It too is equal to half a beat. So the eighth note and the eighth rest together, that's 2 eighths, that equals the first beat. And so below you see 1 and, which is how it would be counted. Next to that, you see the quarter rest for 2, and then you see the half rest for 3 and 4, equaling 4 beats. On the left, you see 2 groups of 4 eighth notes joined by a solid black line, which is called a beam. A beam is used when you have 2 or more eighth notes played one right after the other as a group. So, because 2 eighth notes equals 1 beat, we see it's counted 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and to make 4 beats. What you see on screen is a whole lot of notes. So let's clear this up by starting on the right side. There you see a single note, black dot with a vertical stem, and 2 flags coming off of the stem. That signifies that this is a 16th note. The 16th note is equal to half the value of the 8th note. So just like in fractions, 2/16 equals 1/8. Next to that, you see our fish hook has gotten a little meaner looking with an extra barb on it. That signifies a 16th rest. Then it's followed by an eighth rest, a quarter rest, and a half rest. All that combined equals 4 beats, as you see below. 1 E and 2, 3, 4. On the left, you see 4 groups of 4 notes. Each group of 4 notes is joined together by 2 beams, signifying that this is a group of 4 16th notes. Below, you see how you count them. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. Showing that 4 16ths equals 1 quarter, or 1 beat. All right? Now, if you need to rewind and review what you've been learning thus far, please do. If you have the written material, just pause the video and review all the written material to this point, and make sure that you understand what you're looking at. All right? What I want to talk about now is how the music will be presented in written form. Again, we're not talking about the pitch of music. We're talking about certain notation things that are going to be very beneficial for you to understand. Now, you see that big squirrely thing on the left, that's the treble clef symbol, or the G clef symbol, because it sort of looks like a G. Next to that, you see 4 over 4. The top number represents how many beats per measure. The bottom number represents what note value gets the beat. I'll go more into that as we go. Then on the right-hand side, you see a vertical line. This line divides measures. It's called a bar line. Okay? So study this for a moment and just kind of get these things clear in your head. Okay, now, I talked about bar lines a minute ago. This is what it looks like in notation on the treble staff. You see those vertical lines. Between those bar lines is a measure, and you can see you've got a whole rest sitting there too, indicating 4 beats, which we see over on the left. That 4 over 4 is telling us that we have 4 beats per measure in the top number, right? And we'll get into the bottom number, what that means as far as what note gets the beat. So study this for a second and then move on. What you're looking at now is what I call the time signature equation. This is how you understand time signatures. So let's start on the left, where you see 4 over 4 equals 4 over 1. So 4 is 4 beats. The top 4 represents 4 beats. As in fractions, 401 is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So in music, it's 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. Plus 1 over 4. What does that look like? 1 quarter, right? So exactly. Quarter note gets the beat. Now, on the right, you see 3 over 4. That equals 3 over 1, so we have 3 beats plus 1 over 4. The quarter note gets the beat. Yeah, it's that easy. Now that you have an understanding of the note values, the duration of each individual note, and you have actual audio examples of their time value as well, let's put that to work. Here is a 3-measure example for you to look at and count out. Ignore the swoopy lines. I'll explain those shortly. And let's see how you do. You work this out. Start now. Okay, here is what you should have come to. As you can see, we start out with a group of 4 eighth notes. You see the beam joining all 4 notes, indicating they are eighth notes. So 1 and 2 and. Followed by a quarter note, which is 3. Then you have two more eighth notes for 4 and. Then the next measure starts with a quarter note, 1, and then we have two eighth notes, so 2 and, followed by a quarter note for 3, and two eighth notes for 4 and. The next measure starts with a quarter note, so there's 1, followed by two eighth notes, 2 and, then completing with a half note for 3, 4. Now, if you want to stay just counting the and of the beat, starting at the very beginning of this phrase, you can go 1 and 2 and then on that quarter note, say 3 and, then 4 and, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. This will help you keep steady time, right? So kind of metronomic in a way. So you can count the ands even on quarter note things just to keep the flow, and that's a good practice, all right? Here is another 3-measure example for you to look at and count. This should be getting pretty easy now. So go ahead and count this out and see how you do. How did you do? Did you remember to count the eighth rest at the very beginning as 1, and then the eighth note that's sitting on its own as and then carry on with 2 and, 3 and, 4 and so forth? If you did, then you were paying attention earlier. Rests have value too. In this case, it's an eighth rest, so that's half of the first beat, and then an eighth note all by itself is the second half of the first beat, so 1 and. Okay, so you see, this isn't really difficult when you're not dealing with pitch, which is what the notes actually are, but more just looking at their value. Okay? Let's do one more. So look at this and focus. And if you have to have your notes in front of you for any one of these 3 examples we've been going over, go ahead. It's there for you to use to make sure you understand how to count this. All right, you ready? Go. In principle, this is no more difficult to count out than the previous examples. You're just starting off with 4 sets of 4 16th notes. Each set of 4 is 1 beat, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. And then the second measure, well, you should know that by now. That's really easy. Okay, so there it is. This is how simple it really is to understand the value of a note, its time duration, without having to worry about the pitch, what's the actual note. And this is what we're talking about and focusing on in this lesson. Okay, so if you want, go ahead and pause and go back and look at your written material and make sure you understand how to count each of these 3 examples before moving forward. You heard me mention the swoopy line, and you should ignore it for the time being in those examples that we just went through. Well, now we'll focus on that swoopy line. It actually has a name. It's called a tie. The function of the tie is to join 2 notes together of the same pitch. We're not dealing with pitch, we're dealing with time values. So the tie still applies here. It's still relevant. So we've got a note here that's a half note on the left side, and it's tied to a quarter note. So instead of playing like this, 1, 2, 3, 4 is silent, where you play the half note and then play the quarter note, the tie says play the half note, but don't play the quarter note yet let it ring out through the full time value of the quarter note. This is why below you see in the red box 1, 2, 3. You let the note ring out for the full duration of the half note plus the quarter note. So it would be like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. Rest on 4. Okay? Now, in the second measure on the right, you see a quarter note tied to an eighth note. And again, below you see in the red box 1 and 2. So instead of playing 1 and 2 and resting on the end of 2 and continuing to rest through 3 and 4, you play the first note and let it ring out through the time value of the second note because they're tied together. So you would play that like this: 1 and 2 and. Rest on and then continue to be silent through 3 and 4 and. If you need to rewind and review and listen to the explanation again, go for it. That's what this is here for you to learn and review until you understand it. Now, there's another way to write out a half note and a quarter note with a tie that's a little bit cleaner looking when you write things out on a chart. And that is by using what is called a dot. Now, there is a rule for this dot, and I call it the rule of the dot. The rule of the dot goes like this: the dot is equal in value to half the value of the note to which it's attached. In the case on the left, you have a half note, which is equal to 2 beats, or 2 quarter notes. Therefore, the dot, being equal to half the value of the half note, is equal to 1 quarter note, or 1 beat. Therefore, as you can see in the red box below, you hold the note for 3 beats: the half note's value and then the dot's value, which is 1 beat. So 1, 2, 3, rest on 4. Likewise, you have the quarter note with the dot. Now again, the dot is equal in value to half the value of the note to which it's attached. Here, the dot is attached to a quarter note. Now we know a quarter note can be broken down into 2/8, right? 2/8 notes. So half the value of the quarter note is an eighth. Therefore, the dot is equal in value to an eighth note. And as you can see below, that means you hold the note for the value of the quarter note, 1 and then the value of the dot, which is an eighth note, giving you 2. And then you see the and of 2 is a rest. And that would be sounding like this: 1 and 2, rest on and of 2, and then 3 and 4 and are both rests. If you need to rewind and listen to the explanation again, please do. It's there for you to do just that, and I hope it's clear. All right, I think I'm going to call it for this segment. We've covered a lot of ground here, and I want you to pause and review the written material or rewind the video and go over everything and make sure you clearly understand what we're talking about here, so that when we move forward, you will not be confused about what's going on. It does get a little more simple as I move forward for this series here, because you've got the main fundamentals now, okay? So take your time and really get them right, okay? I want to thank you again for letting me be your teacher. I really appreciate the time you spend here learning what I have to offer. It means a lot to me. And likewise, I would love to hear your thoughts. So down in the comment section, go ahead and tell me what you're thinking. And if you have ideas of things you'd like to see me cover in the future, make mention of them as well. All right? We'll see you in the next segment.